Today on Questions Answered, we're talking about helmets. Statistics vary a bit, but a safe and properly fitting bike helmet can produce head and brain injuries by 65 to 85% and can reduce the chance of fatality by 34%. Let's go. The first question is there a safety standard? And in the US, all helmets have to pass CPSC testing. And this includes tests for what they call impact attenuation, which is reducing the force transferred during the impact. Then being able to securely stay in place on the rider's head, the strength of the retention system, and there's a standard for allowing adequate peripheral vision. So each helmet that's for sale on the market in the US for a bike has to pass all of these tests. And you can check on the inside of the helmet, and there should be a sticker there that says CPSC. Next question is, what is the basic construction of a helmet? And most bike helmets are made with a polycarbonate outer shell, and then an EPS, or expanded polystyrene foam liner, and that's what generally does the impact absorption. And then they use fit and retention systems that are made of plastic and nylon. Next question is, how do I choose the right helmet for the type of riding that I'm doing? And all helmets fall into one of the following categories. Some fall into multiple categories, but the following categories are recreational, commuter, road, mountain, and multi-sport or skate style helmets. And so let's talk about a recreational helmet. A recreational helmet usually prioritizes price point while still meeting CPSC standards and allowing for some ventilation. So they usually include, vents on the top to allow for good airflow. They prioritize comfort and style, and also usually include a removable visor just for sun protection. These are usually the most accessible helmets from a price perspective. The next type is a commuter style helmet. So these also prioritize style in a lot of ways and often have less ventilation compared to other style helmets because usually a commute ride is one of the shorter rides. And it's important to look cool when you show up, And a lot of commuting helmets include, some include visors, but some also include lighting, which is a pretty cool feature for commuting. And here's another version of a helmet that has integrated lights. So that's a pretty great feature just for visibility. Another type of helmet that would fall into this commuter category is a folding helmet. And these are pretty cool because they pass all the same safety standards as the other helmets, but they're designed to fold up to be easier to bring with you when you're not riding. The next category that I want to talk about is road helmets. And these are the lightest and most ventilated helmets. Often they include some kind of aerodynamic sculpting these days too to give riders the performance edge on the road. So the reason a road cyclist would want a ventilated helmet is they are working hard. They need to be cool out there and comfortable. So the more ventilation you get, the cooler you're going to be on the bike. And riders in the road category also like to maximize, or I should say, they like to minimize how much effort it takes. So the lighter the helmet, the less effort you're putting into holding your head up. So these are also usually the most expensive helmets because they're so light, ventilated, and performance focused. So they tend to cost a little bit more. Another thing about road helmets is they usually have a little less coverage compared to some of the other helmet types because the types of impacts the road cyclists often take are kind of over the bars, so they don't need some of the protection that you find on, say, a mountain bike style helmet. The next category worth mentioning are mountain bike helmets. And these use a thicker shell than other types of helmets and offer more coverage compared to a road style helmet, especially in the back of the helmet here, because you might fall in various kinds of ways on a mountain bike. So having that extra coverage and extra thickness means there's just more protection. Not that mountain bikers don't need to be cooled as well. A lot of mountain bike helmets also have big vents in them. There's also an important feature on most mountain bike helmets in that there's a removable visor. And this is a bigger visor than you usually find on a recreational helmet because it serves a purpose in deflecting branches from hitting your face when you're mountain biking. And can also shade from the sun as well. Here's another example of a more extreme type of mountain bike helmet. This is a full face helmet that offers a much higher level of protection for face impacts. This type of helmet is usually just for downhill riding or riding where you're doing less pedaling, because the trade-off in having this extra protection is that there's less ventilation and less cooling and a bit of a heavier weight to the helmet. So it's not for every type of application, but is perfect for extreme riding. And the final style of helmets worth talking about is the multi-sport or skate style helmet. And you can recognize these because they have a much rounder shape and a smoother surface on top, and usually a lot less ventilation. Most multi-sport helmets are designed to pass testing for skateboards, scooters, and inline skates in addition to bikes. So they have to pass a variety of standards. Usually they have more protection around the sides and the back of the helmet. But all this comes with a bit of a trade-off too, because they are often very hot on the bike and not often the best choice for riding, in my opinion. The next question is there a feature that can make my helmet safer? And the answer is yes. There is a cool technology called MIPS that's relatively new still to helmets. And MIPS stands for Multi-Impact Protection System. So it doesn't necessarily protect more for direct impacts, but it protects for rotational impacts. The people that invented MIPS discovered that rotational forces caused more brain trauma than direct impacts. So they devised this system to absorb those rotational forces more effectively than a typical helmet. So a lot of helmets just come with MIPS nowadays, but in some instances you have to pay a little bit more for a MIPS helmet. Sometimes if it's not super well integrated, then it can limit some of the ventilation, but on a nice helmet, the MIPS system is well integrated and won't block any of the airflow. The next question is, what happens if I spend more on a helmet? Well, each of these helmet types comes in a price range, and higher end versions are most often lighter and more ventilated and have more advanced features. Like in the commuting category, nicer helmets will often have lights or some cool features like that. But in my opinion, you should really get the nicest helmet you can afford in the category, because the more you like it, the more likely you are to wear it. And the more likely you are to wear it, the more likely you are to have it on when you need it. So it's always worth spending a little bit more for the protection of your head and your brain. And nicer helmets also look way cooler, so totally worth it. The next question is, can I reuse my helmet after a crash? And the answer is, it is not recommended. If your helmet experiences an impact, then there can be damage in the EPS foam of the helmet that weaken it. So it won't provide the same level of protection as it did when it was new. So the recommendation of the CPSC and all helmet manufacturers is to replace your helmet after an impact. And that can be from a crash or even dropping your helmet hard. So you want to be careful handling your helmet on your head and off your head to make sure that it's as safe as it's supposed to be. And the final question is, how should a helmet fit? And the answer is, it should fit so that it sits about an inch above your eyebrows in the front to provide adequate protection for your forehead. The side straps should form a V under your ear. And when buckled underneath, it should be almost snug, but allowing a few fingers under there just for comfort, but making sure that the helmet doesn't come off in the case of a crash. And it should be snug enough in the back with its retention system that jiggling your head or trying to rotate the helmet with your hand doesn't cause it to come loose or move out of position. Do you have a helmet that you love? Post it in the comments. Also, if you have any more questions about helmets or bikes in general, post it in the comments and we'll get to it in a future video. Thanks for watching.